Hey guys, welcome back to DBTalks. And let's be real, this game, we got away with it. And yeah, we honestly escaped with a draw today, with a fortunate last minute penalty. But thankfully, our next game is going to be at the Camp Nou, so we're going to look forward to that. But yeah, we're going to be covering the game today between Barcelona and Newcastle at St James Park in the Champions League round of 16. And this was obviously the first leg, which meant a lot of people expected Barca to actually win this game because we've seen before in away legs in the first leg, especially like the Atletico Madrid game where we conceded 4 goals and it basically put us out of the tie already. So again, even before this like game, we were talking about how it's going to be important to not concede that like too many goals to keep it close, and hopefully at the Camp Nou it's going to be expected that Barca take the advantage. But I mean, yeah, going into this game, the expectations. I mean, Newcastle are obviously, they've been in the Champions League for a couple seasons now. They've been doing fairly decent every year, but again, they're a team that are like a hardworking team. You never know what you can expect with them, and especially when you're playing them away, it's like one of the hardest fixtures you can say um, that you can play against. And even today, we saw like the atmosphere, like all the fans were, backing their team, and there was a lot of boos for like the Barca players. I think there was some boos for Yamal, Pedri, and stuff. So yeah, there was just a lot of atmosphere, and it was like cool to see how the Newcastle fans were so passionate to back their team. But again, yeah, going to this game, Barca are still top of La Liga, and we are coming off of a couple of good results, but again, this was a pretty big game because round 16 of the UCL you can never take it for granted, and at these points of the season, if you like slip up and you let one game go, you can basically end your like UCL campaign. So again, really, really, we need a big performance, and unfortunately, we're going to talk about it. I don't think the team really delivered that, but yeah, I mean, even going to this game, I predicted like a 2-1 win for Barca. I think it was going to be like a tight game. I think again, the physicality of Newcastle, it's always something hard. Even like last time we played them, it wasn't an easy game, and we kind of had to rely on independent performance from Rashford to save us in that game. So again, we always know that playing against Newcastle is going to be tight, but yeah, I mean, we can get into the lineups. But Josh, if you want to talk about, because you also predicted like a 3-0 win for Barca, which was a bit ambitious.
Yeah, so going to the game. Obviously, this is probably one of the more big games that Barca have to play this season because obviously it's a UCL round 16 game. It's a knockout, so really now it's like it's a win or die situation where if Barcelona win, then they advance, but if they don't win, then they're out of the tournament and their hopes to win the UCL this season are gone. So it's very high stakes, and I've been coming off with some of the games and just the results and also the performances and all the things the players have said. I think there's definitely a lot of like positive energy going to the game because I think a lot of people expect the Barca to put on a big performance, a strong performance. However, I do think like things like injuries, like the De Jong injury and the injury of both Balde and Koundé are definitely things that set Barca a bit back because it didn't let Barca deliver their best possible line to go into this game. But even with dealing with those injuries, I think Barca were able to still bring up a good lineup. That I think Hansi Flick was able to come up with a good lineup, and um, I just think that just going to the game, I think everyone wanted a good result because, like you mentioned before, with the Newcastle Stadium, it's a pretty tough ground to play against. And even though Barca did play against them earlier in the UCL season, the opening game for Barca in the UCL was against Newcastle, and Barca were able to get a 2-1 win, but it was a very difficult one to get. So, with this game, I think it would be much harder for that. I think it'd be harder for Barca to break through Newcastle just because of the stakes and how Newcastle recently have been. They've still been kind of solid, even though they're only 12th in the Premier League. I think they've been having a solid season and they get some good results. I predicted to do around 3-0 because I thought that coming off like some of these games, I've seen like Lamine have insane performances. Pedri coming back, and he really looks like he's like in very good form. I thought that Barca would step up more, and I thought players like Lamine would take more control of the game and take more risks, take more opportunities. And we'll talk more about the actual performances later on, but we didn't really see too much about that from what I at least observed. I feel like Barca didn't play like that, like what I expected. But yeah, talking about the lineup, so before the game started, Eric Garcia actually picked up a knock. He had like discomfort. I don't know if it's during training or anything, but yeah, he picked up a discomfort. So he was originally going to start at right back, but he was unavailable because of the discomfort. So he had to get replaced by Araujo. So the lineup was keeper Juan Garcia, right back. So yeah, Araujo played right back, which I'm sure a lot of fans are kind of skeptical because first of all, when Araujo came back, to the squad, he didn't really start many games, and most of the time he just got minutes off the bench, some cameos, and every time he was playing center back, so he never really played right back. And we know that in the right back position for this Barca team, usually they have some responsibility in the attacking front where they support the Yamal on the right to just give him like make some runs, some like cut-ins and all that, and just to support some attacking, just to support the attacking role. But with Araujo, he's not really that type of player to do that. His attacking presence comes more from his height and like physicality in the box, and we've seen like his game winner versus Girona in the first game versus Girona in the 2-1 win, where he's in the box and he got a good shot. We really see his attacking presence there, not really as like a support on the width. So I think that was one thing that people were very skeptical about, and also just his performances in the UCL. I think fans think there's like some karma, or like not like karma, but like a trend that Araujo doesn't really play well in these. But yeah, that was just some things there. But then yeah, center back. So Kubarsi right center back, Joe Martin left center back, and then left back Joao Cancelo. Obviously, yeah. So Bald and Kun are still injured, so they Cancelo and Araujo have to take on the fullbacks. Midfield, so yeah, De Jong is out, and I think Gavi still is like he's in the squad, but I still think coming off the injury, he just isn't fit to even start at all yet. So there was Pedri and Bernal, and I think that was the best midfield choice to go into the game. The front four, so Rafinha on the left, Lamine on the right. I think that's like the two best players to bring out in the lineup, but that was fair. And then Fermin started at the 10 role over Olmo, which I personally I thought going to the game I thought was a good idea because I think Fermin brings a lot of pressing energy and like I guess tenacity that would definitely work for a midfield like Newcastle, who are very physical and pressing as well. Striker, so Fran actually didn't start. It was actually Lewandowski, who he's coming back, kind of coming back. He was injured a bit, like slightly. He was out, and then he got a start today, and I think it was the right choice personally. Even though we'll talk more about his performance and like how it maybe didn't end up so well, I still think that just starting him in a game like this, I think personally it was like I would have went the same route. So yeah, overall I think the lineup from Flick was pretty good, and yeah, we can talk about the first half.
Yeah, and even like before this game, I predicted like the lineup, and I actually got like every player right. But there were a couple of things like shocking about like the lineup that I didn't expect, and the main thing was Araujo because yeah, as you mentioned, like Eric Garcia was out, and we didn't expect like that to happen because usually Eric Garcia is a very like reliable player and he can play multiple positions, so you'd expect him to at least play in this game. But yeah, unfortunately, he was like ruled out with a knock, so hopefully he isn't injured too bad because we do need him for the next few games. But again, yeah, Araujo at right back. I mean, I really didn't expect that. Even if he is starting, I expected him to go as center back because last time we played them at St James Park, he played as center back and he actually he dropped a pretty good performance. So I did expect Flick to at least try him as center back this time and maybe move Cancelo at right back and Martina at left back. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think Flick actually prefers to have Martina as left back. I mean, left center back because I think he prefers to have a left-footed left center back that can play, balls out, and he has a good ball playing ability, I guess, with his left foot. But yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure, like me and you, a lot of Barca fans were a bit like, worried about Raul starting at right back because again, he hasn't like featured in this like in the lineups for a long time, and even at right back, like it's been quite a long time that since he's played there. So again, I mean, we didn't know what to expect with him, and I mean, we were hoping for the best because Newcastle were obviously going to target our fullbacks and our high line to get runners in behind and try to create chances of that. But again, I do think Araujo was like trying to prove us wrong, and even like with the Araujo Lamine kind of situation, I mean, again, Lamine kind of needs like someone that can overlap him, and Araujo wasn't really doing that for him. So it was almost at times like Lamine fully carrying the right side attack, and you know there wasn't enough like help with him. So at times Lamine was kind of isolated with like three or four defenders around him, and like there was nothing much that he could do alone. Um, and other than that, I mean, there was another shock for the Newcastle lineup. I mean, Gordon and Woltemade weren't starting at all, and again, Gordon was like rumored to get some sort of illness or like some sort of knock, so he couldn't start the game. But even Woltemade, I mean, he hasn't really featured as a starting player, but we do expect like Eddie Howe to at least like play him, and he didn't even feature this game at all. So not sure what's going on with that situation. But again, yeah, I think the main like talking about for Newcastle's like end, even before the game started, was their attack where Barnes, Osula, and Elanga. I don't think that's their strongest attacking threats, and Osula, even like they have a player like Lisa who could have played this game. So I don't know. I mean, going to this game, I was actually happy to see that attacking lineup from Newcastle. I expected like the defense to, I guess, deal with them a lot better, and I think that would have made it easier. But I mean, let's get into the game. The first 45 minutes, I do think the first half, like we started off okay, but I think Newcastle was starting to dominate us. And again, throughout this whole game, we just couldn't control the ball, and a lot of our plays were like slow and sometimes even forced, where we try to do a long ball and try to win the ball up the field, but again, it just ends up being us just losing the ball. So it was a bit frustrating, like even the start of the game where we kept losing the ball. Newcastle started to control the ball, had a couple chances where they were physically trying to imply themselves onto the Barca defense, and those chances, there were so many corners that they had where there was chances where um, they could have scored. There was that one where like Tonali hits it at Joan Garcia and he kind of lets it go through a bit, but thankfully it didn't go in and it was saved. And there was a couple other chances, but again, really really poor start from Barca's end. I mean, it wasn't really like we couldn't even hold on to the ball, and we said so many times this season where our best method of defense is to hold on to the ball and hold on to possession, so the other team can't attack us. And again, I just don't feel like we entered this game with the right mentality. And like key players like for me, even like yes, he's good at pressing, but I don't think he had like a great impact. And even Lewandowski, where we need someone like that as a box present, I don't think he was doing especially well. And yeah, I do think like Dan Burn and players like Lewis Hall were having like the best of our players. And like I think overall, like the game started off pretty stale. I mean, for Barca's end, I do think Newcastle had the upper hand, and even throughout this game, I do think Newcastle actually deserves to win this game because I just don't think Barca created as much at all. And even if you look at the stats, like the first half, Barca like somewhat kind of dominate possession by a bit, but Newcastle had more shots on target, and I just feel like yeah, there was times where they had more corners, so there was no threat from that with players like Dan Burn who can do really well with headers. So again, it was a bit just not good to see that Barca came out the game and just weren't doing enough, to be honest. And it did feel like going to the half at least like 0-0 would be the ideal result because yeah, I just don't think we created enough, and honestly we're lucky to not concede a first goal in that first half. But what were your thoughts?
Yeah, so talking about the first half, I think it was very like shaky. I'd say, at the first half, I think honestly, I noticed there's a lot of fouling, fouling, like a lot of fouls being drawn from both sides. I think we talk about just attacking wise. I think Newcastle were better attacking wise. I think they were looking more threatening. Players like Alanga had kind of looked more scary, and there were times where Garcia had to make some saves, and sometimes he would almost like lose the ball in his hands, which were kind of scary moments. Like that Tonali header, he almost lost the ball, and Dan Burn almost got like a goal from that. And yeah, and also just I also noticed that yeah, I think Barca just didn't do enough. I'd say I think it was kind of disappointing from some players. I know Barca had some chances off like a counter that I think went to waste, like that one Rafinha chance where he's on the right with the ball, and I don't know if he tried to shoot or pass it, but whatever he tried to do, it didn't work out, and the that chance got wasted. I think I think Barca possession wise was doing decent, but I think at the same time the possession was very like evenly distributed from both sides. I think both sides had their fair share of the ball. I think with like Pedri, I think Pedri did super well with like trying to keep the ball, and he's able to draw a lot of fouls because the players couldn't get the ball off him without fouling him. So I think that was very good from him. I think also Barca made some pretty clutch, like I think the defense made some pretty clutch like blocks and stopping Newcastle from shooting. Like I'd say Jerome Martin, Kubarsi, and Cancelo made some I say notable blocks that I noticed. So yeah, I just think like in that front, I think Barca were okay, but I feel like it wasn't anything. Like, I feel like the way Barca played wasn't that good. Like it wasn't good, I'd say, because I feel like Barca could definitely done more with what they had. I really think Barca should have gone a goal in the first half. I think there were some chances that could have been converted, but just weren't. And I think it was disappointing from certain players. I think Lewandowski didn't do much in the first half. I think Rafinha didn't do much. I think Firmino also lacked stuff. I think Lamine was okay. He could have done more, but I think he was also one of the main attackers really trying to create. And yeah, I think also, um, yeah, and also I do remember that the best chance that Barca got in the first half was when I believe Pedri was on the byline on the left and he crossed it in and Danburn almost on goal it. It just went slightly past the post. I would say that's like the best chance that Barca got in the first half. And yeah, I think besides that, I feel like there was some like close stuff, but nothing like really. I think it just kind of wasted from Barca then. So yeah, I think also just yeah, I feel like if it were to pick a team that I'd say it did more or dominated a bit more, I say it's probably Newcastle. Again, like I said, like when they were attacking, they kind of looked a bit more scary. I think Alanga kind of looked scary, but at the same time, he didn't really do much with the ball himself. He kind of messed up his chances as well. So I still think like if I were to reflect from like the both like from both teams, I think both teams didn't really do enough to really get the goal, and I think it was a bit of a stale half, but at the same time, there were a lot. It was a lot of back and forth and a lot of like fouls and stuff. So it was like a very tense half, I'd say, where both teams really want the first goal, but at the same time, it's kind of like a stalemate where both teams aren't trying too hard enough to really get the goal. I felt more like both teams were playing very defensively and like trying not to concede instead.
Yeah, and I just feel like even with like the game that we had, I mean, it was kind of tense where Barca didn't create enough, and I just felt like there was times where I don't think we did enough, and yeah, as I mentioned, like we were lucky to go into our second half at 0-0. I do think Newcastle could have scored like a chance or two, but yeah, we were slightly lucky, and even like just the overall play that we had, I just think we didn't do enough. And thankfully, we had like a player like Pedri that was kind of bailing us out at times where he was pressured and he wanted us to foul to at least break up the momentum that Newcastle had throughout the game. So that was something that we could have, that was good for us. But again, I don't feel like we had any penetration of the Newcastle defense. I feel like the crowd kept the intensity high, and it just felt like a really tense game where both sides were kind of going at each other, and I don't think anything was being really created from Barca's end at least, and it felt like at times it was more of like Barca trying to hang on to the game rather than try to dictate the game and try to like dominate and take their own chances. But yeah, I mean, going to the second half. Again, I feel like it was another KG star. I mean, both both teams were kind of cautious. They were trying to, not let the other team counter them. And we even saw a player like Alanga have so many chances throughout this game. And honestly, we were lucky that he was so wasteful because if this was any other player, like a good pacey right winger, they would really cost us because. Yeah, I mean, Alanga had chances where he could have crossed the ball, he could have taken a shot, but he just decided to be a bit more wasteful. So, I mean, that was something that we kind of got away with. But yeah, it's just something we know that we were expecting to happen because we know that any pacey winger that can running behind, they're gonna cost us on the counter attack. So again, and even with like a player like Cancelo, who's not the best defensively, so we do know that that can be something that's vulnerable as part of our defense. So yeah, it was expected that a player like Kalenga would have another good game, but yeah, he was wasteful, so we kind of got away with that. But um, again, nothing really much happened during the since the halftime. Um, we did see Araujo have a couple like blocks and stuff. I think to start the game off, I think Araujo was actually one of our better players. I do think he had a pretty good game where he was trying to deal with the I guess runners and stuff, but there was times where he was kind of pushing up too high, and I think he was leaving Kubarsi kind of like vulnerable in defense. And um, at times it was like almost like a 3-on-3 in defense where Araujo was kind of pushing onto Lewis Hall at times. So that was kind of costing us a bit in our defense. But There's also like I think we forgot to mention like the Fermin chance where it was played into him and he had like a shot that was kind of right at Ramsdale, which was kind of saved easily. So yeah, there were a couple like small chances, but again, nothing clear cut that we could have actually scored off of, and that was a bit frustrating to see because I do think we just didn't create enough to take the lead and at least dominate the game. And I think around the 67th minute, we saw like substitutions start coming in, where players like Gordon came on finally. We saw who else came on? Jacob Murphy got the assist we'll talk about, and even Livermento came on for Trippier. And then for even Barca's end, around the 70th minute, we saw Dani Olmo and Marcus Rashford come on. And I think this actually changed the game a bit because bringing off Pedri, I mean, that was a bit of a risky decision from Flick because, yeah, I think with Pedri, we were just a much better team. And um, bring him off, I do think we lose a lot of control in our game. And honestly, it did kind of cost us. We saw that as soon as Olmo came on, I mean, our midfield wasn't as good. I don't think we controlled the game as much. And I mean, we'll talk about what Olmo did later on. But again, I just feel like the decision from Flick to take out Pedri, so I mean, with 20 minutes left to go, it's a bit of a weird decision, I'd say. I mean, I do think he's trying to rest him. Of course, we don't want Pedri to get injured anymore, but I mean, if he's taking him off for the next game in the Liga, which is against Sevilla, I do think this was a bit of a more important game than that, where I do think he sort of maybe risked Pedri more here, and maybe like rested him against Sevilla. So that's a bit of a decision from Flick that he took. But the other player that came off, I mean, Lewandowski, we're going to talk about player performances, but again, he just really didn't do anything in this game. He was more like a ghost this game, to be honest. Like, he didn't do much. And we saw Rashford come on, who last time had a really, really good performance against Newcastle. So, again, Rashford came on, and it just felt like, at times Barca just needed someone else to, take the blame. I mean, I'm sorry, not taking the blame, like, just take the game in charge and try to make something happen. And we really didn't see that, like, nothing happen in the second half. And another big moment in the second half was the Bernal, like, injury where he went down and he just asked to be substituted, which is honestly didn't look good because he kind of just pulled up while he was running. So, when a player does that, it's never looking good for them. So hopefully he's not really like truly, truly injured. Hopefully he's nothing serious and he is able to, come back fit soon. But yeah, that just didn't look like a good moment for Bernal. And because of that, we saw Casado come on, and again, Casado has been someone who's not been really like amazing this season, but he is able to do a job. So I do think he came on, had a couple of good tackles, but yeah, nothing too special. And ending the game with the pivot of Olmo and Casado, it just wasn't good enough. I do think it was a bit worrying to see that duo as a pivot, especially like against the physical midfield that Newcastle has with Tonali and Joelinton. So yeah, it was a bit worrying to see that near the end of the game. And then yeah, I mean, let's head into the first goal that was scored by Barnes. And again, this was a big, big moment. I mean, before this goal, even, I want to talk about the whole Araujo situation where it was a corner and Araujo went for the header and he kind of just went down, kind of pretending to be injured. And the weird thing is, like, he goes down off the pitch and then he tries to like drag himself onto the pitch to, I guess, waste time on the clock. And um, I mean, it's a weird decision from him because he just like crawls back onto the pitch, tries to waste time, and obviously the ref knows what's going on, so he just instruct Raul to go off the pitch to get treatment. But of course, Raul is just trying to waste time, so he doesn't want to really get off the pitch and try to waste more time. So again, Raul just comes back on, tries to run back, but the weird thing is that he doesn't like go back to his position. We see Rafinha like trying to cover his position at right back, and Raul just kind of like slowly strolling back, but again, this really cost us the goal where Jacob Murphy who came on, he kind of crossed the ball in, and where Araujo is supposed to be marking Barnes, he's kind of left open. Where Rafinha, he's not a defender, he doesn't know how to like properly mark an attacker, and Barnes is just kind of left free in the box, and again he ends up scoring off that. And I guess the whole moment from Araujo, who was having a pretty like decent performance, but just because that moment kind of cost us that goal. And being 1-0 down at St. James Park that late, is never a good sign. And yeah, at that point, I mean, it just really cost us the game where, being 1-0 down in the 86th minute, it's just never good. And yeah, at that point, expect Barca to, lose that game. But again, Araujo did come off in the 80th minute for Javier Spart, who actually came on and had a pretty okay cameo. I mean, he had that one good tackle. And I do think a player like Javier Spart, I think he is like being trusted by Flick. I do think Flick sees the talent in him, so we can't expect him to feature in our future games at right back because obviously players like Eric are struggling with injury. Araujo's not fully fit. Akunde's injured, so a player like him could actually make an impact for Barca. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with that. And then later on, even Ferran Torres came on, but the big moment in the game was like the last minute where in the 94th minute, Cancelo kind of drives in and then a pass is played into Daniel Olmo, who has actually a really good move where he kind of, you know, dribbles past Malik Tia, and thankfully, like Malik Tia leaves a like dangling and he ends up tackling Olmo in the box, which is given as a penalty. And honestly, that was like a jail, like escape jail free card from for Barca's end because you know everyone expected Barca to lose that game 1-0, even me, like near the end of the game. And yeah, we thankfully got bailed out with that penalty shout. And the weird thing is, I expected Rafinha to take that penalty, but again, he kind of gave it to Yamal, which was kind of interesting. I don't know why if those were like talks behind that. I don't know like why they decided that, but yeah, Yamal ended up taking the penalty, and thankfully, ice in his veins, he ended up scoring that penalty with a lot of confidence, and yeah, he ended up celebrating that. So again, 1-1, not the worst result, but the overall performance in Barca's, and I don't think it was really convincing, and it just wasn't good enough to be honest. But yeah, what are your thoughts on the whole game, Bajesh?
So yeah, talking about the second half, I think it was kind of similar to the first half. I feel like it was very equal in terms of like a back and forth from both Newcastle and Barca, and how both teams were like, trying to get possession and trying to attack each other. And similar to the first half, I feel like Barca still didn't really do enough to really get the goal. I think Bears still could have done better. And I think when Flick made the subs, I feel like the subs themselves, it didn't really have that immediate impact that you'd probably usually see. I feel like someone like Rashford, who you see most of the time has like a lot of impact coming off the bench, where whether it's like through his set pieces or his just the way he attacks, I feel like we didn't really see that. And yeah, I think not enough really happened. And yeah, you kind of mentioned like some stuff like the Pedri sub, which I mean, I feel like with the yeah, like kindly said, I think like the obviously the UCL is a more important game than the La Liga, so I feel like it's easier to spare his minutes in La Liga compared to the UCL because I think with the La Liga, I think he can play like 60 minutes in La Liga. I think if Barca can get a good like goal lead in that game, then he can get subbed off. But with the UCL, I feel like if Barca is still struggling to score, it's 0-0. I think it's very hard. I think subbing him off is gonna hurt the way Barca played because I think he was one of the main players really holding Barca together in the first half. So I think it was difficult. Like after when Pedri got subbed off, I think it was more difficult for Barca to really take control of the game and to have that player that holds on to the ball. And with Casado, I feel like with last game with Casado, I feel like he did best when he had a player like Pedri next to him that can control the game for him if needed, and he's there to support defensively, and he can also make good passes. And when Pedri is off and Casado came on for he came on for Bernal, I believe, but I believe Pedri got subbed up for Olmo, and with Olmo, I think when he came on, I feel like he doesn't really replicate the Pedri role either. So really it's only De Jong who I think can do that, and obviously De Jong's out, so I feel like having Olmo play there next to Bernal at that point, I don't know, I don't think it would have worked that well. And then talking about the Bernal injury, where Casado came on, again, like I said, I don't think Casado really plays the best next to a player like Olmo, who isn't like a Pedri type player who can control the game. Olmo honestly is more like a 10, so having him play in that Pedri role, he can do good at it, but I feel like that midfield really needs a true midfielder that really can take over games and just help Barca just build up play. And I think that's something that we've seen like in Barca's like history, how Barca are super good at producing these midfielders, the eights, the six. So I feel like just like, when that substitute and like those changes happened, I feel like Barca took a pretty big loss in that. And yeah, I mean talking about like, the other subs, like I mentioned, Rashford, I feel like he didn't really do too much. I'm trying to think who else got subbed on. I believe because Fran came on later, and I think Fran, he also didn't really do too much either. Though I think with Fran, in my opinion at least, I feel like he honestly could have came on earlier to replace Lewandowski instead of Rashford taking off Lewandowski, because I think, well, Fran, even though I think recently he hasn't been that good, or he hasn't really been in form, he hasn't been scoring, and he's been missing a lot of chances. I think like a game like this, when the striker who's already on isn't really doing anything, it doesn't hurt to have Fran on, because I think Fran's still good at having positioning where the ball still ends up at his feet, and he takes chances, and he even though he doesn't really convert them in the past, if he gives him those chances, who knows what happens? He may just score, and I think Barca really need that goal, and that first goal to really get things running. And yeah, because I think a goal like their goal with that, I think would just have Barca have so much momentum on their side, where they would probably do much better and probably get more goals. But yeah, I think Frank could have been subbed on sooner, and I think with Rashford, I honestly think like Rashford could have even taken off Rafinha, because I think Rafinha didn't have that good of a game. I think he struggled with his decision making at times, and the way he kind of attacked, I think he didn't really do enough. And I think that change could have been possible if needed. And yeah, also with Xavi Esparza, because you kind of mentioned that, his cameo, I think it was okay cameo for what he had to do. I think nothing really crazy happened when he came on. I think he did what he had to do, and I think it was fine. And I mean, I think like with him coming on and just also how the subs came, I think it kind of shows how Barca's depth isn't as good right now with the injuries that are going on, and Bernal's injury is gonna be very rough if it's something long term. We're not sure what it is exactly, but if he were to get injured, then the midfield depth is very lacking, I'd say, because it's really just what now it's Pedri, it's Casado, Gavi who's coming off an injury, and then Olmo who's not really like at that type of midfielder profile, even though he can play there. And then Firmino if he had to, but I don't think he really can, because he has to play at the 10. Him or Olmo has to play at the 10. So yeah, I think those are definitely something that Barca will have to deal with. And talking about like the actual like goals conceded, I feel like the first goal, I mean not the first goal, I mean the goal that Newcastle scored, I think like I don't know, to be honest, I don't know what Rahul was doing when he was on like kind of like I don't know what you call that part of the pitch, but he was outside the field, and he kind of refused to get in the pitch for some reason. And I guess you could say it was time wasting. And I feel like that was a very dumb decision on his end, because I don't see the point in time wasting when there's like 7 minutes left approximately, and Barca can still get a goal. And we saw that he took a sweet time to get back, and it forced Rafinha to go right back, and Newcastle were able to get a good cross in, and no one was marking Barnes, and I don't blame Rafinha too much, because he's not a right back, and I feel like he's not really like it's very difficult for him to be the one to mark Harvey Barnes when he's not really right back, and he's just there to try to cover Rahul's position. I can't blame him too much. I blame Rahul more than anything, because if you look at the goal and you see where Rahul is, he's kind of standing there. He's watching the cross go in and watching Barnes open to shoot it, and I think that's just shows a bit of how frustrating Araujo's decision making and some of the stuff he does can be. And when it's a big game like the UCL knockouts, and where his mistakes cost more and mean more, that's when like you see problems happen, and that's where I think a lot of fans have a lot of their controversy and hatred about him, I'd say. So yeah, I think that was very disappointing to see. And then talking about the penalty, where Olmo, he had a very good move. He dropped his shoulder and Thiago fouled him. I think it's a pen, obviously, and Lamine took it and he got a good pen. And I think that goal was very much needed, because I think without it, I really couldn't see Barca scoring in open play, because I felt like it was very difficult to really break through Newcastle's defense. And I think the chances that Barca were taking just weren't good enough, and I think the players didn't make the best decisions when going forward. So I think just a pen to take the draw, and then second leg go back to the Camp Nou and try to put on a good performance, because we know that so far in the season, in the new Spotify Camp Nou, Barca are undefeated, and Barca won every game, I'm pretty sure. So definitely like a draw going to those circumstances definitely favors Barca, I'd say, with the fans of course backing Barca. But I'd say the only issue right now is just the fitness and injuries that Barca are dealing with right now. I think if Bernal's out for that game, if Bernal's out for the game, then I'm thinking the midfield would probably be like Pedri and Casado, which I think could definitely work, but it's definitely a heavy loss, because I think Bernal was he's going to this game with good form, and recently he's been very good. He's also been on the score sheet as well a few times, so I think he definitely offers something unique to Barca, and with Casado, who this season I think he has been as good. A lot of fans kind of want him sold out, sold for like to leave the club because they don't think he's good enough and stuff. I feel like this season, like I think last season he was definitely good when he had to start during De Jong's injury, but this season I think when he has played, he hasn't been to that level at all. But I do think that it's a good idea to keep him and to just see what he can offer because I think he's also one of those players that is very like Blaugrana coded, who's very passionate about the club. So I feel like something like that's just super good to have. So I definitely think that he can definitely put on something strong versus Newcastle in the second leg if he were to play or if he were to start. And yeah, besides that, I mean, just talking about the overall game, I think definitely like disappointing from the attacking perspective of Barca. I thought Barca were going to go into this game more like, more like I guess attacking spirit. I think more dominance because I felt like the energy going to the game and the recent performances kind of reflected how Barca really wanted to do well and how the players seemed like they were kind of very confident. But I think today was a pretty hard day, and I think Newcastle gave it a pretty big they gave it their all. They gave it a pretty big fight, and I definitely think Newcastle had a lot of respectable players that I think played well and made it tough for Barca to play this game. And I mean, yeah, I think the second half could have been a bit better from Barca's end.
And at the end of the day, I mean, a lot of fans, a lot of people are going to blame Araujo for, that whole goal that we conceded. But I just feel like the overall team performance wasn't good enough. I feel like individuals, I mean, we're going to talk about performances, but yeah, I just don't feel like the team itself performed well. And again, we came off like a good game with Atletico Madrid. But if we can't continue that level in like big games like this, I mean, it's going to cost us. And even like the Bilbao game, I don't think we created much as we could have. And it just shows like right now we're struggling in our attacking fronts, where even Rafinha has not been. I mean, is in his peak goal scoring form, and our whole striker situation is just not looking good. Where even Fair and Lewandowski, every game that they play where they interchange, I mean, none of them look like they're showing any promise for us in our attack. So it just yeah, I don't feel like our attack is like doing as well as it can. Even our midfield and our defense, a lot of our players are injured, so that's gonna cost us in games. So I mean, we're gonna have to deal with it. So it's what we have to do. So I mean, let's talk about the performances. I guess. I mean, Bajaj, you want to start off? I mean, do you have any one you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So, like for a man of the match, yeah, I was very like I'm conflicted between I say two players. Um, for me, for me, it's between Pedri and Gerard Martin. I think for me, I'll go slightly towards Pedri because I think when Pedri played, I think we kind of mentioned as well, and I kind of mentioned as well the difference when Pedri's playing for with Barca and then when he's not on the pitch, you can definitely just help. There's a very noticeable difference. I think Pedri when he was on definitely kept the game a lot more balanced. I think when Pedri was off, I think um, Newcastle kind of looking a bit better. So I think when Pedri was on, I think Barca is more stabilized, and yeah, I think he controlled the game well, and he was able to draw a lot of fouls because the Newcastle players just couldn't get the ball off him. And yeah, I just feel like he's super helpful, and I think Barca don't really have like those midfielder profiles. I think even in recent history since like Iniesta retired, and I think De Jong's kind of like that, but I think Pedri's kind of more different, and I think he's more unique, and I think he's someone that Barca really need. And I think today kind of showed like his cameo, like how important he is. And when he was off, I think that's when Barca kind of struggled a bit more. So definitely he'll be important in the next leg and the Liga games as well and the rest of the season. So yeah, I think today I'll give man match because I think when he was on, he was good, and yeah, I think also at the same time I feel like the level of play from all the players wasn't too high, so I feel like it's kind of hard for me to pick an outstanding player. I think a lot of players come down a lot more. But for like what I think Pedri definitely had the best impact on the game, and I give him man the match. But an honorable mention for me would be like a Gerard Martin. I think Kubarsi was good. I think Juan made some pretty good saves in the first half and some second half as well. And what else? I guess that's kind of it, honestly.
I mean, yeah. I mean, even if I'm looking at the whole team performance, I don't think there's anyone you can pinpoint and be like, they performed really well. They deserve to leave this game with their head fully high. So I mean, my man of the match would honestly go to Kubarsi. I feel like he was one of our most influential players in defense. I think even in ball playing ability, there was that one moment where he kind of played the ball out, and it was still for me who played it to Yamal and stuff like that. So there's a couple good passing plays from Kubarsi, and I feel like he does really well in linking our defense with our midfield and attack. So credit to him, and even like recent form, I think Kubarsi is really starting to pick up. So that's really good to see. But yeah, I just don't feel like anyone really like stood out this game. I think yeah, Pedri was pretty decent. I think he had a couple moments where he was controlling our game, as he said. I think there was times where he was as I mentioned before, he was trying to get us out of trouble where he kind of like won us the foul. So that was good, but again, nothing too special. Even Yamal, I just don't think he performed well this game, and you can kind of blame it with the aroused like at right back situation. I mean, he didn't have someone to you work with. He didn't have someone to overlap him, and there was times where Newcastle were putting 3 to 4 defenders on him at all times. So again, there was not much space for Yamal to work with, and I do think Lewis Hall actually had a really good game. So credit to him as well. But yeah, I don't think Yamal was anything special before that penalty, and even just everyone else, I don't think anyone had like a stand-up performance. I mean, John Garcia had that one moment. I mean, the goal itself, I do think it was slightly unlucky. I mean, it kind of goes at him and kind of hits his chest and kind of goes in. So that was pretty unfortunate. But again, I don't think anyone you can look at and be like, they did extremely well. But yeah, is there anyone else you want to talk about specifically?
A bit with Lamine Yamal because I think he got the pen, but I think a lot of people are kind of like saying he didn't play well, and I think there's definitely a lot of like stuff about people talking about him because I think even going to his game, I mean, coming off his recent form, people are giving him the best in the world shouts, which is I think is fair. But yeah, I think even Newcastle fans were praising him, and he was at the stadium. A lot of people were like, he got a lot of boos as well. That's when he celebrated his goal, his pen. He was kind of clapping back at that with that celebration that he did. But I'm talking about Lamine's performance. I think he was okay because I think attacking wise, I think he definitely could have done a bit better. But I think at the same time, he was one of the main attackers that was really doing something. I think he was definitely the best out of the front four, and I think he had some good few moments, some good touches, and yeah, I think there are some moments where he could have almost scored. But yeah, and besides that, I feel like definitely wasn't his best game. I think in games like these that are very important, I think he can definitely step up a bit more. But yeah, I feel like at the same time, there's also like other issues like you mentioned with Araujo playing right back. He didn't have that attacking support from the right back that we usually see from players like Koundé or even Cancelo or Eric, where their job as a right back is to give Lamine support. So if he can give some passes when they make an overlap or underlap, to just support him in any way attacking wise, that can definitely that's definitely something that I think you can notice that wasn't there for him because Araujo was playing and he's not really that player that does that type of stuff. So yeah, I think that could have done more. I think something also that could be interesting is like letting him play more centrally because a few times in the game he was playing a bit centrally, and I think with that freedom that he has, I think it can definitely unlock his creativity a bit more and his attacking style. And yeah, I think definitely he was very close to getting a goal or assist. I think he had some moments. I think if Rafinha had some chances where I think he was a bit too selfish at times, just shooting the ball. I think in some like plays there, he could have passed the ball to Lamine or play pass to someone. And I think, again, I think it's a bit of like a frustrating game from some of the players. I think, honestly, I think it was the best performance from any of them. I think they could have done a bit more because we've seen their level. And I definitely think in a game like this, they have to do that because they have to definitely give their all and their best like performance to win games like these because these are the more important games. And I think Barca really can't afford to lose this tie because it would be very bad for them. So yeah, and yeah, I think like I mentioned with Rafinha, I think he definitely could have done more. I think Lewandowski could have done a bit more. I think he didn't really do much. And other players, I think Firmino also could have had a much better game. I think he kind of struggled as well. He had one good shot on target. Besides that, I feel like he didn't really do enough. He was also trying to get like through the counter, but again, I feel like the counters that Barca took weren't good at all. And I think Bernal was like okay before he got injured. I think he did what he had to do. But again, I feel like this game specifically was a very back and forth game. I think it's very different than the typical Barca game because it's not a game where Barca are really controlling possession or dominating possession. It's a back and forth between both teams that have equal possession. Because I think Newcastle's midfielders, some of their players like the Joe Linton, the Tonali, they definitely had a good fight against like this Barca team, and they had some pretty scary players as well going against. So yeah, I think that's all.
Yeah, I do agree with you. Like Yamal had not the best game, and a lot of people have been like putting him up there in those conversations with best in the world at the moment. So it's a bit weird because yeah, he didn't have the best performance, and I do like that the fact that he actually took the initiative to take that penalty in the last minute because I do think he himself holds himself to like a high standard. So yeah, putting yourself in that type of pressure situation, it's pretty like a bold move. So credit to him for that. But overall, just his performance in general, I don't think he did enough. And I do want to see more from him in like the next leg at least, where we do play Newcastle at home. So it's another big game that we do need to see Amal and our overall squad and team do much better in the game. And yeah, as you mentioned, like Rafinha as well, there was moments where like there was a weird shot that he took or like a weird pass where instead he should have like found someone else or found a clear vision pass where that could have created like led to a goal. But again, another like weird Rafinha performance. I just don't think like the whole team it was just a weird performance. I don't know like how to describe it, but I just don't think anyone was on their like game today. And again, it just kind of cost us. And thankfully, we kind of escaped with the draw. I do think we could have lost this game 1-0 or even 2-0. But 1-1 at St. James Park, you always take that result. And even like a team like Chelsea, they went down and came back to 2-2. So um, you never know. Like a draw at St. James Park is never a bad result. And think hopefully like if we come look at the Camp Nou like fixture, that's the thing we're gonna look forward to for Barca's end. Um, but yeah, overall takeaways, I mean, again, not a good performance, but the main thing is that the second leg is at Camp Nou, so that's something we are gonna look forward to. And again, we are undefeated this whole season in Camp Nou, so again, it's gonna be encouraging to see a team like Newcastle come to the Camp Nou and hopefully we do win that fixture by a much better performance. And I do want to see key players like Rafinha, Yamal, and stuff to have much better performances. And yeah, what is your take on just overall the second leg and stuff?
Yeah, so just my like overall takeaways. I think this kind of proves how on and off Barca are because I feel like there's definitely games that Barca play super well, and that's when like a lot of fans are very hyped, the players are hyped, and it sets like a big standard and expectation for Barca in the upcoming games. But at the same time, I feel like Barca also just have games that it's not perfect. It's sometimes Barca struggle and just aren't on their day, they're not playing well, and I think that's when a lot of questions become asked about the team and some of the players. So you can definitely notice that Barca have these, and I think having a game like this game in Newcastle where it's a lot more dangerous and there's more at stake in this game, to have that I think is very scary for how Barca may perform in like the future games, like in the UCL as well. Like the UCL, if they make a pass for this in the UCL quarterfinals versus Atleti, who we really mentioned, but Atleti had a pretty strong performance against Spurs today, so that's like a potential watch out for the UCL quarterfinals if Barca make it past this round. So I feel like you just can't really afford stuff like that. And yeah, I mean, I think it just shows that Barca have a lot more work and a lot more to really improve on because I think a lot of players can definitely do a lot better and need to work better, I'd say, because I feel like some of the players just haven't really demonstrated that this season yet. I think there's a lot of players that have to prove a lot more to themselves. Even the good players have to always show up as well. So I think that's just something like that you kind of notice that Barca could have done a lot better. And Barca really did kind of get lucky with the game, getting away with the draw and getting that pen. Because I think easily Barca could have lost this. I think if Elanga had a very good day, if for whatever reason, like if he had a great day somehow, he would have done super well against Barca because he really looked scary enough, and he definitely had moments of struggle where he didn't really have good decision making or he just didn't play with the ball right. And if he played well, I think he would have probably gone Newcastle a good win, honestly, like a 3-1, 2-1 or something a win, because I think Barca defensively gave away too much. I'd say like too many close chances and too much like space. I'd say I think the defense did well in like blocking some of that stuff, but at the same time, I think Newcastle really were the ones with like more like SA chances or better chances at least as well, because I think Barca's chances were okay, nothing too like I say nothing too like promising of a goal. I think it was really hard for Barca really to break Newcastle. Yeah, and like besides that, like definitely I think it's gonna be a big reminder for the second leg and how Barca really need to approach it. I think like definitely Flick and the team definitely learned a lot for the way Newcastle will play, and definitely need to like account for that and try to put on a much better performance for the second leg to play at home and get the win, because just to advance to the next stage of the game. And I think it'll be more difficult I think Gordon's gonna probably start that game. I'm not sure Voltamadio will, but definitely they're gonna bring their best team for that leg because it's definitely it's a do or die type game. They'll definitely have to they'll have to like try and put on a good performance against Barca at home. So yeah, Barca really have to prepare for that, and the players have to put on their best game to make sure that Barca don't succumb to like any pressure or like just anything like that. And yeah, another takeaway I guess is just obviously the injuries are tough, and I think I would hope to see Flick kind of reconsider who he plays at right back. I think Cancelo supporting Lamine would be kind of better, and having like Jordan Martin play left back, and then center backs I'm not too sure because Kubarsi's not really good at the left center back. So I don't know if Araujo would have to play there or something. So I'm not honestly too sure how Flick will really um how he'll really play that like type of thing. But I guess it's just something we'll have to see. Um yeah, I think also just show that Barca's like depth isn't like too strong right now. It kind of relies a lot on like younger La Masia players who aren't really aren't really that proven. So yeah, I think that's just something to also look out for, and definitely like if the players like on the main team, like the first team and like the starting lineup put on good performance, I think it puts a lot less pressure on the players that are coming off the bench because not they can't always like provide immediate impact. Even someone like Rashford, who's been like one of Barca's main players who makes impact, he can't consistently um like deliver that all the time. So I think the players who start have to put on the best performance they can, really get Barca to win. And I think players like Lamine and not Rafinha, Lamine and Pedri are really the ones that really take the team to a whole new level. So definitely a lot of pressure and like a lot of stuff falls on them. So yeah, but at the same time, I think they're very talented and very good. And I think they're good enough to handle that pressure and to like deliver. Like for me, I think they're both top two players in the world. I'm not sure how I'd rank them, but I think for me they're top two. So yeah, I think they can definitely handle that. And yeah, just a bit of a preview for Sevilla because we know what happened versus Sevilla last time. It was a 4-1 loss, and that was I believe it was Barca's first loss that season. I think that happened before the Madrid game. I don't remember too much, but that was definitely one of the worst performances of the season. And I think the way Barca's defense handled it was very bad. I think the defense, like the current defense right now, will handle it a bit different, and I think the game should go better than what happened last time. And at the same time, I feel like Barca shouldn't pressure themselves too much with this game because I feel like the Newcastle game is a lot more important. So I feel like I feel like Pedri and Lamine should be rested a bit more, and some of the other players as well. And I think players like Rafinha or Firmino or Olmo or Ferran Lewandowski have to really push to help Barca get the result and to do well in their game, because I think putting less pressure on the players that are more important for the Newcastle game, it's going to help a lot. To not overwork them because yeah, I think even though the league is important, I think this Newcastle game kind of is a reminder for how tough Newcastle are and how Barca need to do a lot more work in order to get the win in the second leg. So I feel like Barca can spare Pedri or Lamine for some minutes, like a half or something, because I think they deserve the rest. And I think other players really need to step up to take over like that game for Sevilla. So yeah.
And another big moment from the Newcastle game, I mean, was the Barnes post where, it was a good play from Newcastle's end and it was played into Barnes and he ended up hitting the post and, Joe Linton's rebound was ruled offside, but we did also get away with that. So again, yeah, we honestly could have lost this game by 1 or 2 goals. So we did kind of get away with it. But even like, yeah, as you mentioned, the consistency kind of points where a competition like the UCL, you require your team to be, consistent and I guess perform in those big games. So if we aren't able to do that, it just looks like unlikely that we can, win this UCL and go far and, beat a team like Arsenal, who, I mean, if we played a team like Arsenal, I do think they would take more chances. And even off the corners and stuff, they would cost us more. So, yeah, I think we have to perform better, like much better as a team. And I mean, looking forward, yeah, you mentioned the Sevilla game, and that's going to be at home. So I do expect a stronger performance in that game. And hopefully Flick does actually kind of rotate, maybe like start a couple key players and then take them off later in the game if we do, get a good lead. But yeah, I do think looking forward, the main thing is the second leg for the Newcastle game, because that's going to be a big game. And again, it's on Wednesday. So and it's an early kickoff. So it's gonna be something to look forward to. But I mean, overall, I think yeah, I just don't think Barca really performed well today, and hopefully, if the team does like start getting more consistent in their performances, yes, we are missing a lot of key players due to injury and stuff, and just being ruled out. But I mean, that's how the game works. We're gonna have to cope with that, and um, it's another thing like about the squad building, where you like a recent interview from Laporta, he was talking about how the squad is actually like doing good, and he doesn't see that we need to sign any like too many players. So that's slightly also worrying because I mean he should be able to see that the squad is struggling in depth and we don't have any like we don't have enough key quality options. So that's something also to like talk about with the whole board and the whole election situation, which is there's also a lot of drama around that that we might cover later. But yeah, I just don't think overall this Newcastle game was really encouraging from Barca's end. Yes, we are a bit hopeful that the second leg is at Camp Nou, but yeah, our whole team needs to wake up at home and hopefully Newcastle, succumb to the pressure at Camp Nou. But yeah, let us know your thoughts down in the comments. I mean, are you thankful that Barca ended up surviving this game? Do you think they should have lost this game? And how do you see our UCL hopes continuing in the competition? Yeah, like, subscribe, and let us know your thoughts down in the comments. But thank you for listening and peace.
Goodbye.